One last lesson with quadratics. What happens if we're looking for the equation and we have the graph? This question is asking us to write the equation in standard form. And we know that the A tells us whether it's opening up or down and has been stretched or compressed. And we know the C is the y-intercept. On this graph, I can see the y-intercept is -2. But I don't know A other than it's going to be a positive, and I don't know B. So if you don't have the information needed to write standard form, and you won't, you're going to have to look at the information given and then choose whether you can work with vertex form or factored form, and then FOIL and convert to standard form. So you'll remember vertex form, I have to know the vertex. I don't have the vertex of this parabola, and it actually looks like it's not whole number values. So then I'm going to think maybe factored form. Factored form tells me the x-intercepts. And yes, I can see the x-intercepts are at -1 and 2. So when you have the x-intercepts, you're going to start with factored form. So I'm just going to write down my equation here. We already said we don't know A, but I do know my x-intercept. So I know I can plug in values for R and S. So I'm going to plug in -1 for my first x-intercept and +2 for my second one. And this double negative is a plus. I'm really close to having my full factored form. I just don't know A, other than the fact it should be a positive value. So what we're going to do is we're going to see instead, do we have something we can plug in for X and Y so we can solve for A? So we're going to use this random other point given to us, and that is going to be my X and my Y value. And then we're going to isolate for our variable and solve for A. So just put my numbers in here. And I am not foiling, I'm not converting yet. So this is just algebra. So 1 plus 0 is going to be 1. 0 minus 2 is going to be -2. So I'm just simplifying inside of my brackets using BEDMAS. 1 times -2 is -2. And isolating for A, I'm going to divide by -2, and my A value is a +1. So I'm actually going to go right back up here to factored form, and I'm going to plug in my number 1. So y equals 1, x plus 1, x minus 2, and convert to standard form. So remember, FOIL and then follow BEDMAS. So when I FOIL this equation together, I don't need the 1 in front. I can write it if I want, but it won't change anything. So x times x is x squared. X times -2 is -2x. 1 times x is 1x. And 1 times -2 is -2. And then I can distribute the 1, simplify my equation. -2x plus 1x is -1x minus 2. So this is in standard form. Just double check, be a good problem solver. Okay, it is opening up. And then just check that your -2 value is your y-intercept, and just make sure all those numbers work out there. So this is my final answer that I'm looking for. That's standard form. If I wanted to find my vertex, I could then continue on and do axis of symmetry or complete the square or midpoint of my x-intercepts, and I could then also figure out vertex form. So let's take a look at one more example. This one actually gives me the x-intercepts and the vertex. So I actually can start with either a factored form or vertex form. Again, I'm not going to start with standard because I don't know anything other than A should be a negative. And also my C value should be a 0. My y-intercept should be 0. But I don't know anything else. So start with vertex or factored. This time we're going to start with vertex form, just so we can see how this one works. So vertex form, H and K are my vertex, which in this case is the point 3, 9. 3 being H, 9 being K. I don't know A, so I'm looking for something to plug in for X and Y. I have 2 points. I could either use 0, 0 or 6, 0. Either one works. I think I'll just go with 0, 0 for X and Y. If you use 6, 0, you'll get the exact same information. So if you want to try that, go ahead. Working with zeros just kind of seems like a nice, quick thing to do here. So 0 take away 3 is obviously just 0. Negative 3 squared is 9. And remember, like terms, this a and this 9 are attached. So I'm going to subtract the 9 over here and isolate for a. Divide by 9. And negative 9 divided by 9 is negative 1. Your a value will not always be a whole number. It could be a fraction, it could be a decimal, it could be anything. In this case, I'm just getting a negative 1 a value. Now I'm going to go back to vertex form and plug in negative 1 for a. So y equals negative 1 x minus 3 squared plus 9. And remember that you're always doing FOIL first. So I'm going to write my bracket twice here so I can see it better for foiling. Then we'll follow BEDMAS. So x squared minus 3x minus 3x plus 9. I'm going to simplify inside of my bracket here. Negative 3x is negative 6x. Distribute in the negative 1. Because I'm following BEDMAS here. So remember, you're going to do multiplication before you do your addition or subtraction. So negative 1x plus 6x minus 9 plus 9. And then final step is simplify. And the 9 and 9 will cancel. So here is standard form. And I'm going to just double check. The parabola was opening down. And is my y-intercept at 0? Is C 0? And if I look at the graph, you'll see, yes, it started at 0, which is why the C value canceled. And that's standard form. And again, you could continue to find vertex form. So the main point of this is if you're given vertex, start with vertex form. If you're given the x-intercepts, start with the factor form. If you're given both vertex and the x-intercepts, pick either one, whichever one you choose, plug in your values, solve for a, and then continue to find your other forms for that quadratic relation.